I'd say that trust is probably not the strongest at the moment, the way things have been going. And it's going to be interesting to see how these allies react to this, because if you look at Australia, it's still a pretty conservative place. And when you think about things from a governance point of view, when the US are looking to sell their full stack AI solutions, they talk about it. So it's like everything. It's the hardware, it's the applications, it's the data centers, it's everything. They want to sell this full AI solution to their allies and partners. You've got to be thinking from let's look at it from an Australian-centric point of view. What guardrails do you want to actually put in place? Are you willing to accept all of this data going off to the US? So look, it's good that they talk about the open source side of things, and there might be some interesting products that kind of come out of that, which allow, say, Australia to create a sovereign-based product. But certainly, if you're sending off data to the US, we know with the likes of the Cloud Act, that data is not necessarily secure. And it's going to be interesting to see how that goes as Australia moves to this more GDPR-aligned approach to protecting personal information. We've seen where the EU is going. The EU is a lot stronger in terms of guardrails around AI.
Yeah.
When we look at what's not being talked about, so they're not talking about guardrails, they're not really talking about governance, they're not talking about privacy. There's nothing in here about privacy of personal information. And I think when we look at where AI is going just in the short term, one of the big most recent developments is this agentic AI. It's also one of the biggest risks. So ChatGPT just introduced a new product around agentic AI, which is, you give the AI a task, book me some flights to, Singapore, and it will go off and it will work through your calendar and it will work through whatever app you want to go, and it will grab your personal details, it will grab your passport, it will grab your credit card, it will go book those flights for you, it will let your contacts know that you're going to be going off to Singapore. Just think about the privacy risk that's involved in all of those interactions with all those different applications. That sharing of that personal information as it completes that task. Yeah, it's wonderful. You just sit there and you allow the agentic AI to go and do whatever it wants to do. But look at all that personal information risk that's associated with it. Where's the protections?
Yeah.
Where's the guardrail? So look, I mean, I guess coming back to the plan, it's got some scary stuff in there. And it's going to be interesting to see how different nations react. Some will be fully on board, and I think some others will take a much more conservative approach, and I think some others will kind of go, hey, it's not just about the US and China. There's other countries, other organizations building solutions here. Maybe there's a third way. And it will just be interesting to see that if people do pick alternate ways to doing things than the US way of seeing things, how that's going to sit with everything else going on geopolitically.
Yeah, I think it's going to be down to a couple of things that I've been told in the past. It's more about, sort of like the devil's going to be in the detail. I think there's
Yes.
going to be there's some nice words in there, but I mean, it just sounds to me like there's some rather sinister undertones to the whole thing. And, sort of like look at the motivation and look at the intent.